Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Stay with me as I bring you an all-angle perspective of global issues. Beginning from what is happening around the world as Netanyahu wants Iran that Israel can strike. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns Iran that it will strike if it is hit first. But then it is a warning, and he said his country can reach any part of cleric-run state. He said if they strike Israel, Israel will strike them back, that there is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East.
If you strike us, we will strike you. There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East.
And moving away from there, Iran's foreign minister sharply denounces the outrageous threat of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who warned in an address that he gave during the United Nations General Assembly that his country was able to strike the Islamic Republic. Meanwhile, Iran just launched its second direct attack on Israel in history, firing what it said were 200 missiles, including hypersonic weapons, and sending frightened Israeli civilians into shelter, and that's so uncalled for, like some persons will say. Now, the United Nations should recommend use of force to stop Israel. Who is saying this? This is coming from Erdogan. The Turkish president, talking about Tayyip Erdogan, said that the United Nations General Assembly should recommend the use of force in line with a resolution it passed in 1950. If the United Nations Security Council failed to stop Israel's attack in Gaza and Lebanon, the Security Council is the only one that can actually do that. They are the only body that can do that normally. But then I don't know, but the decision is actually left to them, such as authorizing use of force and imposing sanctions. But will that really be possible? Erdogan also said he was sad to see Muslim countries failing to take a more active stance against Israel, urging them to take economic, diplomatic, and political measures against Israel to pressure them into accepting a ceasefire. Maybe because they don't want to make it feel like it's a religious war. Probably that may lead to an escalation of the war to other regions. And that could be the reason why no action was taken by then. Things can actually get better. This is coming from Biden, who said this as a final UN address. The United States president is the one making that statement. So moving away from the war situation, Joe Biden addresses the United Nations General Assembly for the final time as president of the United States. He warns member states about the danger of AI, that is artificial intelligence.
To help African countries prevent and respond to Mpox, and to donate 1 million doses of Mpox vaccine now. The world needs to stop arming the generals, to speak with one voice and tell them, stop tearing your country apart, stop blocking aid to the Sudanese people, end this war now. In the years ahead, there may well be no greater test of our leadership than how we deal with AI.
Announcing U.S. plan to donate 1 million doses of the Mpox vaccine to African nations, urges the world leaders to put their people's needs before their own and ends on a hopeful note. And he also urged the international body to work together. As a matter of fact, French Law Commission massively reject proposal to impeach Macron, and that's going to be the last story today as the Bureau of France National Assembly validated an impeachment procedure brought by had left MPS against President Emmanuel Macron. As a matter of fact, this was something that a lot of people never saw coming as an unprecedented move in France. But then it is highly unlikely the head of state will fall. He may not fall. We're talking about Macron here. Meanwhile, the French National Assembly Law Committee overwhelmingly rejected by 54 votes to 15 a motion for the impeachment of the President Emmanuel Macron tabled by La France Insoumise, which criticizes the head of state for not respecting the result of the legislative election. Now let's come to Nigeria, where we will be concentrating on today, and it's going to form the basis for our discussion as I will be joined by my guests. Now to Nigeria, where there is a demand on Security Council seat by delegates at the United Nations General Assembly. The country's Minister of Defense, talking about Abubakar Babadru, made the demand at the Summit of the Future during the 79th United Nations General Assembly in New York, USA. He says that Nigeria has contributed to international peace, and of course, peace has been one of the things that Nigeria has actually contributed to, and security in terms of troops, finance, logistics, and civilian experts to various African countries, including Guinea-Bissau, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Mali, and Cote d'Ivoire. In addition, Nigeria has actually played a key role, according to him, in regional security and stability in West Africa and the Sahel. The ministry's Director of Information, Henshaw Ogubike, said in a statement that the minister therefore called on the United Nations Security Council to at least give just representation to Africa on a permanent basis at the United Nations Security Council. Well, that is what was the quest of the minister at the just concluded United Nations General Assembly. Now, we will go on a quick break, and when we return, it's going to be another time to look at the discussion proper. And of course, I will be joined on the program today with a very wonderful personality. He's someone that is has been even in the United Nations, and he is Ambassador Dr. Martin Ohomobi. He's a former Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, a former Under-Secretary General of the United Nations. Currently, he is the president of and the founder of Pan-African Institute for Global Affairs and Strategy, that is PEGAS, and he will be joining me after this break. It is still Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. I told you before we went on break that on return, we'll talk about Nigeria's quest to become a member of the United Nations Security Council. But now, I have my guest in the studio already, introduced him. It's good to have you in the studio, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Ramsey. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. And we're talking about Nigeria's visit to UNGA 79. As it is right now, the visit, attending in the first place, the president was supposed to attend, but then the vice president represented him in the company of other delegates. What do you think? Was it necessary attending in the first place before we actually talk about some of the matters arising from that assembly?
Well, thank you very much, Ramsey, for that very pertinent question. Yes, this is the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly. That is, it is now 79 years since the General Assembly has been meeting every year for 79 years since the United Nations was founded. That's what it means. We have been there since 1960. And we became the 99th member of the United Nations when we signed the Charter of the United Nations on the 7th of October, 1960. So every year ever since, we have attended the United Nations General Assembly. It is perhaps one of the most important global meetings because all the heads of states of the presently 193 countries of the world attend that General Assembly. If they are not there, they are represented at the highest level. And their critical decisions are taken. The General Assembly is in session for 3 months. But the session which the heads of states attend is for about a month. So we were there, and it was right that we should be there. Does it matter whether it was the president who was there or the vice president? Really, that wouldn't really very much matter. But the higher you are represented in such forums, the more importance is given to what you say. But the vice president was speaking on behalf of the president while seated there. But you see, in diplomacy, there is hierarchy, and there are precedents. So it is not exactly the same as the president himself being there as when the vice president is there. It will not be announced or said, but that is in the way that diplomacy is conducted. Hierarchy is important, and the order of precedence has to be followed. And normally, the president comes before the vice president.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer. Let's quickly look at Nigeria's quest to become a member of the UN Security Council. You know, meaning Nigeria has been a member for a very long time, Ambassador, and up till now, they are just clamoring for membership, just, should I say, begging for sort of. What do you make of that? What do you think of Nigeria's quest for membership?
There are main organs, there are certain main organs, about 6 or 7 of them, of the United Nations that was founded following the San Francisco Charter of 1945. The General Assembly, the Security Council, the Economic and Social Council, the International Court of Justice, the Trusteeship Council, and 1 or 2 more organs. The Security Council is perhaps one of the most critical organ of the United Nations, with exclusive rights over the maintenance of global peace and security. Every member of the United Nations, every member state that signs the charter is a member of the General Assembly. And there you are entitled to 1 vote. The Security Council is made up of 15 member states. 10 of them are non-permanent presently, and 5 are permanent members. The permanent members are the United States, the United Kingdom, France, Russia, and China. Africa is the only continent, the only race that does not have a representation at the level of permanent membership of the Security Council.
Do you know, when you were making
from
mention,
1995.
when you were mentioning the name of the countries, I was just wondering, I was waiting to see if Africa will have a representation. But why doesn't Africa have a representation as a continent?
You were colonies of the superpowers. When the San Francisco Charter was signed, there were only 51 countries that signed the charter in San Francisco in 1945. 51 countries. There was just 1 accidental African. I don't know now whether it's Egypt or Sudan, but one of them. But the others, there are Africans today. There are how many countries that are there today? African countries that are there today, some 54 or thereabout. But all of them were colonies of the major powers: France, Britain, and whatever. So you were not represented in San Francisco. You were not there. So nobody spoke for you. But you became independent through liberation wars and through a fight for freedom, and you went into it and signed the charter without any conditions. Nigeria signed as the 99th member. So don't put your blame on others. Take responsibility for your action.
So what
And you have remained there, quietly going there every year to celebrate what?
that's the big question.
You make very loud statements when you are there. But who cares really what you say? I'm not saying that it's not important that you go there. But you are not a permanent member of the Security Council. There is no African country that is deemed worthy. Since 1966, Nigeria has been making a case for an African representation in the Security Council. Since 1966. In fact, I myself and one
1966.
Yes. I myself and one other colleague, we wrote a book on Nigeria's quest for permanent members of the Security Council that was published in 1991. So that case has been made. There was the so-called Unzaweni Accord, which came as a concessionary gesture by the big powers, saying that, yes, okay, Africa, yes, we can have African, but you have to choose among yourself who will be permanent. Who chose that France should be a permanent member of the Security Council?
But then,
who debated that Britain should be there? Who elected America as permanent member? Who elected that Russia should be there? But why are you saying that Africans must come together to agree? When will you have such a consensus? Will you have a, do you not, okay, there's a debate about expansion of the Security Council. Are you saying that Europeans should come together and agree whether Germany or whatever should be there? Why are you saying that Africa should be there?
But as it is right now, does it mean Nigeria will never become a member?
No, the choice is yours to make, I must say.
So how is it going to be done?
Let me tell you something. If you take yourself seriously, the world will take you seriously.
How do you mean, take yourself seriously?
Excuse me. Nigeria is the most populous black nation on earth. Not created not by Nigerians, but by whoever made the world, God himself. Nigeria is the #1 economy on the continent. Nigeria is one of the major global peacekeepers. Nigerians have died for peace. Nigeria is the only country in post-Second World War world, developing country for that matter, that will restore stability and peace to two countries simultaneously, 1,000 kilometers from our own shores.
It's like,
and give those countries back to the United Nations to take over and ensure that peace is achieved.
All right, Ambassador, we're running out of time, but then I just want you to let us know what is the benefit, okay, of being a member, or maybe Nigeria as it is right now, we're not members yet, but what benefit are we deriving, or would we derive, okay, attending this meeting? Because looking at what's happening in Nigeria right now, some persons were saying at a point that why didn't the United Nations come to the rescue of Nigeria? So what's the benefit of Nigeria attending this meeting?
Diplomacy is very important. And as I said, it is the largest global organization where your voice can be heard. If you believe in peace, forums like this are the best ways where peace can be articulated. And without peace, there is no development. So it is the largest forum where all the countries of the world, 103 nations of the world, come together every year to exchange views on global partnership and relationships. So it is key that Nigeria, as a major global actor, the most populous black nation on earth, the #1 populated country in the continent, the #1 economy on the continent, 1 out of every 7 or whatever number of black people on earth is a Nigerian. It is important that Nigeria plays a role there. And Nigeria, I must tell you, has more than played that role ever since it joined the United Nations. What is important, I think, is a proper articulation of our strategy for achieving that permanent membership.
Okay, I think that's it.
The world cannot, we should not think that we are a country that anybody can just walk over. Definitely not. By virtue of our size and by virtue of our global influence and continental influence. So, but you must take yourself seriously.
All right, I think
to take you seriously.
That's the heat. You must take yourself seriously before any other person takes you serious. If you want me to take you serious, you need to take yourself serious. Thank you very much, Ambassador Dr. Martins, for coming on A Diplomatic Perspective today. We hope to have you some other time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, that is the size of Diplomatic Perspective today. It has been an awesome and insightful time. I believe you have learned something, and many more will still come in subsequent editions. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Thank you for keeping a date with us. Join us again for the next edition. Bye-bye for now.